are going through your mind, then when it comes to the image of seeing Jagannath on the Rath Yatra cart, the image will stop there and then you leave your body. So it's very amazing. Jagannath is like a spiritual ambulance, isn't it? When you're sick, then you come to the hospital. But when you're so sick that you can't get up and come to the hospital, then the hospital has to come to you. So in this age, not many people are interested in spiritual things. No? Even in India. Once I was traveling in India and there was a billboard. Sachin is our God. Cricket is our religion. I also used to play cricket. So no, nothing wrong with cricket. But of course, there are also other aspects. So it's very wonderful. You had this festival today. So we will discuss a little bit from Bhagavad Gita. And today, maybe if you have some questions or things you would like to discuss, then we can also. Is that okay? Yeah? Do you have some questions, maybe? Please. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Yashodanandana Ragajanarandana Yamuna Tira Manachari Yamuna Tira Yamuna Tira Manachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura, Hari Bol. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Nitai Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Quick sound check. Everybody mute your cell phones. Kids making noise.
The Srimad Bhagavatam is explaining that we are living in a very difficult time. Kale dosha nidhe rajan. Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults. So many things are going wrong. Asti ko, however, there is one Mahan Guna, one great quality. Kirtana Deva Krishnasya. If you engage in the Kirtan of Krishna, if you chant the holy names of God, Mukta Sangha, Param Rajait, then you can gain release from all the influence that's here. But still, it's not so easy. It's not so easy to just chant. It's not so easy to just sit and listen to spiritual knowledge. Sometimes someone can be sitting in front of you in a lecture and you think for the whole lecture they didn't blink one eyelid. They were so focused. But actually the whole lecture they're thinking about something completely different. They're only looking at you because the mind. Chanchalam himana Krishna pramati balavadridam. The mind is so flickering. And therefore, to bring the presence of the mind to spiritual activity is very difficult, actually, in this age. So the mind is easily hijacked by different things. Sometimes the mind is hijacked by a person. Is it? Has your mind been hijacked by a person? Maybe it's the person you love. Or maybe it's the person you hate. Or maybe it's a person who did something to you. Or maybe it's a person who made you angry. But it's amazing how people can sometimes hijack our consciousness. Sometimes our mind is hijacked by an event. Something that happened. Something that we didn't expect. Something that disturbed us very, very much. And we keep replaying that event in our mind. Sometimes our mind is hijacked by an argument. Isn't it? Sometimes you have an argument with someone and then 3 days later all the good arguments come in your mind about how you could have defeated them. But you're 3 days too late, you know? So in your mind, you're thinking, and only if I said that, and only if I answered in this way, and you're reliving the whole conflict again. So our mind can easily become hijacked by so many things. So what's the solution? Krishna says, Vairagya. You have to become detached from all the thoughts of the mind, because the mind can drive you mad. But being detached from the mind is not so easy, because the mind is very loud. But there's good news. Vairagya means detachment. But in Sanskrit, Vairagya has a double meaning. Vishesha Raga. In other words, Vairagya means detachment, but Vairagya also means Vishesha Raga, a special kind of attachment. Huh? How can the same word mean two opposite things? Yes, because the acharyas are teaching us that the only way to become detached from all the materialistic thoughts of the mind is to become specially attached and attracted to Krishna. Only when one becomes attached, enchanted by Krishna, will all the other thoughts of all the other different things go away. In New York, there's a lot of graffiti on the walls. So if you try to rub out the graffiti, it will be very difficult. The only solution is that you have to paint over the graffiti with something else. And in that way, the graffiti disappears. Not because you rubbed it out, but because you replaced it with something else. And so, our opportunity in our life is that we have come in contact with Krishna. And Krishna has the very special quality. You see, we understand that the God of all the different religions is the same God. Whether you call God Allah, whether you call God Yahweh, whether you call God something else, or whether you call God Krishna, is the same God. However, when God is called Krishna, when we connect with the person, the supreme person who's known as Krishna, then we get a special opportunity. Because this form of God, this appearance of God, has the ability to capture your mind. It's said that when Krishna plays the flute, then all the minds of all the Brajabasis are immediately enchanted. Shriman Rasarasa Rambhi Vamshiva Tatatastita Karshan Venu Svaner Gopi Gopinathaya Shriyes Tunaha. In Vrindavan, there are many, many different trees. It's said that Krishna's favorite tree is the Kadamba tree, because the Kadamba tree is golden, and therefore the Kadamba tree reminds Krishna of Srimati Radharani. It's said that Srimati Radharani's famous or preferred tree is the Tamal tree, because the Tamal is Shyam, dark, like Krishna. And therefore, when she sees the Tamal tree, she remembers Krishna. And then in Vrindavan, there are many Vat. Vat means banyan tree. And so in Vrindavan, there are many, many different banyan trees. Bandira Vat. This is the tree underneath which Brahmaji did the marriage ceremony of Krishna and Srimati Radharani. Then in Vrindavan, there is Javat. Javat is known as a fortress because Srimati Radharani is trying to get out and Krishna is trying to get in. But in a fortress is very difficult because someone is always watching. Then in Vrindavan, there is Akshayavat. This is the tree underneath which Krishna and the cowherd boys were wrestling. Yes, God is also wrestling. And there they were taking lunch every single day. And then in Vrindavan there is Vamshivat. And what happens under the Vamshivat? Shriman Rasarasa Rambhi. The rasa dance has to take place. But there has to be something which signifies the beginning of the rasa dance. And what is that? Karshan Venu Svaner Gopi. Just like when you have a football match, then the whistle signifies the beginning of the match. So in the same way, the sound of Krishna's flute represents the beginning of the rasa dance. And the Srimad Bhagavatam explains that when Krishna plays his flute, then everyone goes mad. The cows are running from one place to another, but as soon as Krishna plays the flute, the cows stop and their ears immediately go up. And it's explained that they look like they're just like in a painting because they're completely motionless. It's explained that when Krishna plays the flute, the Jamuna, which is flowing in one way, sometimes out of ecstasy, begins flowing in the opposite way. And then it's explained that the gopis, when they hear Krishna's flute sound, then it doesn't matter what they're doing. They leave everything and they immediately run towards Krishna. So the question is, have you heard the sound of Krishna's flute? Have you heard the sound of Krishna's flute? If you do, if you have that amazing opportunity, then you will not be able to remember anything of this world anymore. Smeram bhangi traya parichitam sachiveshtir nadreshtya Vamsi nyasta dhara kishalayam ujvalam chandrakena Govindakyam haritano mitikeshi tirtho pakanthe ma prekshistastava jadi bandhu sange stirangaha. Rupa Goswami says there is a place called Keshi Ghat. And if you're at all attached to family, friendship, love, society, material aspirations, don't go to Keshi Ghat. Because there, Govinda Kyam, there is one Govinda. And he is standing. He's standing in a pose which is bending in three places. Tribhanga Shyam. And he's playing the flute. Vamsi Nyastadhara. And if his eyes meet your eyes, if somehow or other your eyes meet with that Krishna, then it's all over. Because Rupa Goswami says, you will forget all of the temporary things of this world, and nothing will hold that place in your heart anymore. So the goal of life is to give the first place in your heart to Krishna. And so the whole world is trying to control their mind. The whole world is struggling with mental health. The whole world is trying to get free from stress. The whole world is trying to forget about all the trauma that's contained within their consciousness from the past. But what they don't understand is that it's not possible. The only possibility is that you have to allow Krishna to hijack your mind. And if you do, if you open your heart in that way, then everything will be perfect. And so this is the purpose of the Krishna consciousness movement. This is the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita. This is the purpose of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. The purpose of the Gita is explained. Manmana bhavamad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. Just think of Krishna all the time and never forget him. So like this, so many things can be said, but the essence of it all is that we have to allow Krishna to hijack our mind. So before I open it up for perhaps some questions you may have, let us read something from the Bhagavad Gita. It said that wherever you open the Gita and wherever you read from, the Gita is speaking to you individually. So in one sense, it doesn't matter whichever verse we pick. So today, you can pick the verse. Tell me a number between 1 and 18. Oh, he's not just given me a chapter, he's also told me the verse. Okay, 1855? All right, let's do that one. So today, what's your name? Govinda. My God. Powerful guy. All right, so Govinda has told us to read from 1855. So let's see what Krishna has to tell us. 1855, Krishna says to Arjun, Bhaktyamam abhijanati yavan yaschashmi tatvata tato mam tatvato gnatva vishate tadanantaram. Good choice. The translation, Krishna says to Arjun, these are Krishna's final words to Arjun. One can understand me as I am, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service. And when one is in full consciousness of me, by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. I'll just read a little bit of the purport, and then, because it's a long purport, so just a short first paragraph. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and his plenary portions cannot be understood by mental speculation, nor by the non-devotees. If anyone wants to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he has to take to pure devotional service, under the guidance of a pure devotee. Otherwise, the truth of the Supreme Personality of Godhead will always be hidden. As already stated in Bhagavad Gita 7:25, Naham Prakasha Sarvasya. He is not revealed to everyone. No one can understand God simply by erudite scholarship or by mental speculation. Only one who is actually engaged in Krishna consciousness and devotional service can understand what Krishna is. University degrees are not helpful. Srila Prabhupada ki. Let's begin there. University degrees are not useful. I also went to university. I also got a degree. However, this is not the qualification to understand Krishna. Sometimes people can be so learned, sometimes people can understand so many things, but they can miss the most obvious point. There's a story of Sherlock Holmes and Watson. You know Sherlock Holmes and Watson? So one day they went for a camping trip. So they put up their tent, and then in the middle of the night, they were sleeping next to each other in the sleeping bag, so they both woke up. And then Sherlock turned to Watson and he said, "What do you see?" So Watson looked up and he said, "According to the way the stars are, astrologically, I can understand that this planet is here and this planet is here and the constellation is like this." Sherlock said, "Good. Do you see anything else?" He said, "I'm looking at the clouds, and according to the meteorology, I'm seeing that these clouds are present, and therefore tomorrow will be an overcast day and maybe the temperature will be in the region of something here." Sherlock said, "Very good. Do you see anything else?" He said, "I'm looking at the atmosphere and I'm understanding that according to the way the atmosphere is at the moment, this kind of pollution is taking place and the carbon emissions are at this level." Watson looked at Sherlock and said, "Do you see anything?" Sherlock said, "I see that somebody has stolen our tent." It's amazing. Sometimes you can analyze things to the nth degree and you can miss the most obvious point. And that's often what people do in the world. They learn everything about the world except the most important thing. Where did the world come from? What is the purpose of the world? And how can I actually find happiness in this world? Therefore, Srila Prabhupada says university degrees are not helpful, because most universities will teach you everything about the world except why we're here in the first place. And therefore, unless we understand the most basic questions of life and find the most fundamental answers, we won't be able to find happiness. Therefore, here Srila Prabhupada says, if you want to understand Krishna, then you need to go to Shastra. Tasmat Shastram Pramanam Te Karya Karya Vyavastiti. If you want to understand God, if you want to find out who is your father, then you have to go to your mother. And therefore Veda or knowledge or Shastra is known as Veda Mata, the mother. It's amazing because many people come to a Hare Krishna temple, but actually only very few read the Shastra. You can be close to Krishna, But if you don't hear from Krishna, you won't be able to solve your problems. Arjun, in the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, was right next to Krishna, but he was doing all the talking. Only from chapter 2, where Arjun began listening to Krishna, were his problems solved. In other words, being close to Krishna is not enough. Being close to Krishna won't solve your problems. What will solve your problems is when you hear from Krishna. And therefore, many people come to a Hare Krishna temple, and in one sense, they're very close to Krishna because Krishna is right there. But the problem is, they don't hear from Krishna. And therefore, you come to the temple, but you may find that the problems in your life perpetuate. Because problems are not solved just by coming close to Krishna. Problems are solved when you come close to Krishna and then you hear from Krishna. Therefore, Krishna says, Rajavidya Rajaguyam Pavitram Idamutamam Pratyaksha Vagamam Dharmyam Susukam Kartumavyayam. You have to understand this knowledge. It's the king of all knowledge. Because this knowledge will make every other knowledge that you have meaningful. And so, the first step in realizing Krishna is to go to the Shastra. But when you go to the Shastra will tell you, Bhakti Amam Abhijanati. That you're not going to understand Krishna just by reading this book. But the way you're going to be able to understand Krishna is if you read this book and then if you begin to serve Krishna. Krishna is not someone that can be forced to appear before you. But Krishna, if he's pleased by one's devotion, then he will reveal himself to you. And therefore, here in this verse, Krishna says, Bhakti Amam Abhijanati. And so, there are many, many different forms of devotional service. And of all the forms of devotional service, it's said that 5 are foremost. Nama Kirtan, chanting Krishna's names. Bhagavata Shravan, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Murti Seva, worshipping the deity. Mathura Vas, living in the holy dham. And Sadhu Sangha, associating with spiritual people. So basically, the more that you fill your life with spiritual sound, Nama Kirtan, spiritual wisdom, Bhagavata Shravan, spiritual forms, Murti Seva, spiritual places, Dhamavas, Mathuravas, and spiritual people, Sadhu Sangha. If you fill your life with these 5 spiritual things, spiritual sound, spiritual wisdom, spiritual forms, spiritual places, and spiritual people, then Krishna says, by engagement in those Pancha Anga Bhakti, Sakala Sadhana Shreshta E Pancha Anga Krishna Prema Janme E Panche Ralpa Sangha. Sakala sadhana, of all the types of spiritual practice, Shreshta, the best, A Pancha Anga, these 5 limbs. Why? Panchera A, because Alpa Sangha, a little bit of association with these 5, Krishna Prema Janmaya A, love for Krishna will immediately arise within one's heart. And then Krishna is not just the all-attractive one, but Krishna is all-attracted by those who have devotion. And so that opportunity is there for each one of us. So it's all very, very simple, but it just requires one to practice with determination, with patience and enthusiasm. Utsahan Nishchayat Dhairyat. Simple as that. And if we do that, then our life will become successful in so many ways. So this is Krishna's message in the Gita. Now we all have to go away and think about it and ask ourselves, what do I want to do with this information? And if you decide to do something practical with it and change your life, then maybe you will achieve that which is very rarely achieved, but that which will actually satisfy the soul. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram. All right, so these were some general words. Shall we take some questions? So it's 7:25. If you have any questions, happy to try to share any thoughts that I have. If there's anything you would like to discuss about your spiritual journey. 10 minutes we have. So any questions anyone may have? Okay, yes.
Speak in the mic. Go ahead, read it.
Yeah, it's on. It's on.
Somebody writes, Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Louder.
Please accept my respectful and humble obeisances. Kindly give some practical tips to get the mood of Trinada Pisunichena verse for a struggling sadhaka.
Thank you so much. So the question is, there is a very famous verse that one should be more humble than a blade of grass. So how do we actually become more humble than a blade of grass? There are different ways to become humble. One way to become humble is through knowledge. When we read the scripture, when we understand, Kesha gras at the bhagasya, I am just 1/10,000th, the tip of a hair, then immediately we realize I'm not that significant as I think. Sometimes we're so absorbed in our own life and we think it's all about my life and my problems and my desires and my future and my. But when we read the scripture, we understand we're actually very small and this life is just a flash in eternity. And this brings a humility, but it brings a joyful humility because it means we don't take ourselves so seriously anymore. So one way to become humble is through knowledge. Another way to become humble is by associating with someone who clearly is much more elevated than us. Because by just being around such a person, we realize I have a long way to go. And therefore, just being around saintly people, being close to individuals like Srila Prabhupada through his books and Srila Prabhupada's followers, then that brings a deep humility within the heart. And then if we don't become humble through knowledge, if we don't become humble through association, then we will become humble. We will be humbled by the world. The world will humble us. The world will humble us to show us that we're not the controller. We're not the enjoyer. The world will teach us that we are just unable to control or enjoy anything in this world. And so It's up to us. One way or the other, we will become humble. But the best way is if we become humble just through our own knowledge and introspection, by understanding I am very small. But even though I'm very small, Krishna still loves me. And in that situation, we can live our life peacefully. But if we live with pride, if we live with ego, if we live with arrogance, then at every moment we will feel disturbance. But a humble person, completely peaceful. All right?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Ram very nice class. I was only there for half of it, so please forgive me. So my question is that as in the Bhagavad Gita 18.42, Lord Shri Krishna says, so my question is, one of that specific verse actually lists the qualities of the sadhu. And one of the qualities is a sadhu is always equipoised. So generally I try to become equipoised, but generally some kind of envy or jealousy, these two anarthas and of course all the other anarthas, they team up and then they try to block that specific saintly quality. And after that, all these six anarthas, they take over and hijack our mind. So my question is how to tolerate this feeling of mind.
Thank you so much. Yes, Krishna says, Samodama tapasocham kshantirarjam mevacha jnanam vijnanam ashtikyam brahma karma svabhavajam. You are a pure devotee. You have love for Krishna in your heart. You already have all of these qualities. It's just that right now they are covered by different layers of illusion. Therefore, Krishna says, or is explained in Shastra, Nitya Siddha Krishna Prem Sadhya Kabu Noy. You don't have to learn these qualities. You already have these qualities, but they just need to be awakened. So in spiritual life, yes, we know what we should be, but then the lower nature always comes in. And therefore, sometimes you will feel like you're falling down. But then you just have to pick yourself up and keep going. And if you keep falling down, then keep picking yourself up. And eventually, like a child learning to walk, you'll eventually stop falling and then you'll start walking. And then one day when you develop more strength in your legs, then you won't just walk, but you'll run. And then one day when you develop even more strength in your legs, then you won't just run, but you'll be able to jump high. So like that, we are a child in our spiritual growth. And therefore, you have to just go step by step. And even when you slip up, don't be disappointed. Don't be discouraged. Just pick yourself up and start walking again. All right? Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Next question. Anybody else? Mataji's? Honor.
Krishna Maharaj,
Can
you please speak on the topic of compassion?
So in a different verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the quality of someone who worships Krishna in the highest way is given. Tapyante lokatapena sadhavo prayasojana paramaradhanam tadhi purushasya khilatmanaha. Param Aradhanam Tadhi. What is the highest way of worshipping Krishna? In this verse is mentioned that the highest way of worshipping Krishna, tapyante lokatapena, is when you voluntarily accept inconvenience in order to save other people from their inconvenience. In other words, it's mentioned that when one develops compassion in their character, when one can't stand to see the sufferings of someone else, when someone goes from being apathetic, just not even seeing other people suffering, and they go beyond even being sympathetic, where you see other people suffering but you see it from a distance, and when they become empathetic, when they feel someone else is suffering to be just like their own, pada dukkha dukhi, then you can understand this person has truly become a Vaishnav. A Vaishnav can't stand to see the suffering of other people. And therefore, compassion is one of the central, cardinal, most essential qualities. Because to be compassionate means that one has softened their heart. And when one's heart is very, very soft, then Krishna becomes very, very active in the heart of such an individual. So, we may not feel ourselves to be very compassionate, but when we act in a compassionate way, then our heart becomes softened, and then that compassion becomes very, very natural. And so, Srila Prabhupada taught us that as devotees, we should try to cultivate this quality of compassion. Is that okay? All right, thank you. All right, anyone else? Yes. This mic is coming. Yes.
Thank you so much for a wonderful class, Maharaj. Very inspiring. So you mentioned about devotional service and the primary core of chanting, reciting in holy association and taking ritual. But what if you can't do all of them? Like maybe there's any limitation. Like what's the best path? And how do we rate like preaching or how does it lie?
Jai Shri Radha Shyama Sundar ki jai. So what to do if you can't engage in these five?
And also preaching, like where does preaching lie as a devotional service?
Thank you so much. So, in terms of not being able to do these five, I think that would be very hard in central New Jersey. I mean, you only have to come to the temple and all five of those things are immediately fulfilled just by coming here. You chant, you hear Bhagavatam, you see the deity, you associate with the Vaishnavas, and you're already living in a holy place because yatra gayanti mad bhakta tatra tistami narada. And therefore, just by coming to the temple, you already do those five straight away. And even if you can't go to the temple, then now we have so many facilities online. You can have darshan, not just of one set of deities, you can see all the deities around the world. You can have deities in your home. So these five are made so accessible by Krishna that is very hard. I think it would be very hard to find someone who says, I can't do these five. I mean, I travel to places in the world where devotees have to be undercover. And even there, they can do Pancha Anga Bhakti. So, they're available, they're open. And if we desire, and if we don't waste time, then Krishna will open up more and more opportunities for you to engage in devotional service. Simple as that. And where does preaching come into all of this? Yes. Actually, when one becomes a devotee, then all of these activities naturally become preaching. They naturally inspire us to share our Krishna consciousness with others. So therefore, preaching is not actually in one sense a separate activity. See, the Sanskrit word for preaching is prachar. Achar means your activities, and prachar literally means an intensification or an overflowing of what you're already doing. And so, actually, when one becomes inspired in devotional service, inspired in their Krishna consciousness, they won't actually have to think of preaching as a separate activity. They'll naturally do it. And just by being a happy devotee, you will already be doing so much preaching, because people will look at you and say, what are you taking? And so Prabhupada said, preaching is easy business. Just show people how happy you are. So in that way, for a devotee, their whole life is preaching. Assisi said, I preach every day. I preach 52 weeks a year, and now and again I say something. In other words, your life is your preaching. Your life is your message. And if you become inspired, then people will become inspired just by seeing you. All right? Thank you. Yes, sure.
When you said that you're already like living in the time, there was some noise, so I didn't hear how you said you're doing that. That's one thing. And the other thing is, many of us, we get daily darshans, deities here and around the world. So does that count toward worshiping the deity?
Thank you so much. Vrindavan is the place where Krishna is the center. Therefore, the Puranas say, Naham tistamive kunte yoginam vidayeshu va yatra gayanti madbhakta tatra tistami narada. Krishna says, I'm not just in Vaikuntha. I'm not just in the hearts of the yogis, but wherever devotees are chanting, wherever devotees are discussing, wherever devotees are worshipping me, tatra tistami, I take my residence in that place. So yes, this is the spiritual world. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada's communities, New Vrindavan, New Mayapur, New Jagannath Puri, because they are already the Dham, because Krishna is the center. And yes, the deity is accessible, even through pictures. But you have to see with eyes of love. Premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena shanta shadeva hridayeshu vilokayanti yam shyama sundaram achintya gunasvarupam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Shamasundar's form is there, but it remains achintya for someone who doesn't have the eyes of love. Therefore, we take darshan of the deities, but what we must also do is serve the deities. Once there were some devotees and they were having a debate. Which are the most beautiful deities in ISKCON? So, Radha Shyam Sundar, of course. No, Radha Madhava. No, Radha Gokulananda in the manna. No, Radha Govinda. And then one devotee put his hand up and he said, you're all wrong. And he was confident. He said, okay, so which are the most beautiful deities in ISKCON? And he said, the most beautiful deities in ISKCON are the ones that you worship with your heart. Because Krishna reveals his beauty. Bhakti amam abhijanati. Therefore, it's not just about taking darshan of the deity, but it's about acting in such a way that Krishna will want to see us. We have to be seen by the deity. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, my whole philosophy, my whole life can be summed up. What I wanted to teach to the world can be summed up in one line. Drig, Drishya, Vichar. What does that mean? The philosophy of the seer and the seen. He said most people think they're coming in front of Krishna and that they are the seer and Krishna is the seen. But actually, it's the other way around. Krishna is the seer, and if we qualify ourselves, then maybe we will be seen. And so, actually, we are trying to serve Krishna, and then we will be seen by Krishna. And then if we're seen by Krishna, then maybe Krishna will empower us to be able to see him. Is that okay?
So you would say then that by being conscientious about how we conduct our daily life, that is also a form of worship.
Yes. So Mataji is saying that the way we conduct our daily life, is that a form of worship? Yes. Yat karoshi, yad ashnashi, yad johoshi dadashi yat, yat tapasha shikonteya, tat kurushva madarpanam. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever activities you perform, and whatever austerities you engage in, do it as an offering to me. And therefore, Krishna consciousness is not part-time. Krishna consciousness is not compartmentalized into a certain time in the week or isolated to a certain location. Krishna consciousness is consciousness, and it should pervade everything that we do. And so our whole life can be an offering to Krishna. That is the goal. All right. Thank you. All right. Shall we stop here or? Okay. There's more hands, but I think we have to stop, right? All right. So thank you all very much for patiently listening. I hope there was something there of value for you. What can we do, Prabhu? I think we have to stop. Prabhu is very eager. I think we have to stop. We can meet after maybe. Is that okay? All right. Thank you all very much.